What's up to all of my learned magic friends out there in YouTube? Thanks for watching my channel, Erudite Magic. My name is Jeff Kowalk. Hey, if you're new here, I want you to know this channel is all about magic books. Everything to do with magic books we discuss right here, and we're so glad you've decided to join us today. And if you're already one of our Erudite magicians, so glad to have you back. If you've been following the channel for any length of time, you know that over the last year, we cover everything from newest, hottest releases to older, more interesting books that maybe you haven't heard of. We've got a brand new release from Vanishing Ink to talk about today, and who doesn't get excited about a new Vanishing Ink book? These guys are at the top of their game when it comes to servicing the magic book-loving community. I'm talking to you, Erudite magicians. Oh yeah. As you've no doubt noticed by the thumbnail and the video description, we're going to be talking about Naypes by Roberto Mansilla. Roberto is an Argentinian magician who has written a book about stand-up card magic, which is fairly rare in the world of card magic. And while the book does have a 2020 copyright date, it wasn't published, as far as I know, until 2021. I want to let you know up front, the folks at Vanishing Ink did send this to me for free to review. I did not pledge to them to give it a positive review. The only thing I've committed to them is to give you, my Erudite viewers, an honest review of the book, so let's get right into it. This baby is hot off the press, and as I have explained before, I do not review a book until I have read it, so you can rest assured I have read this from cover to cover and know exactly what I want to tell you about its contents. Very quickly, let's talk about the physical dimensions of the book. It's in the style of the latest Vanishing Ink releases like Distilled and The Boy Who Cried Magic, so you can see that dimensionally, height and width that is, they are exactly the same size. The depth of the book, or the page count, is a little bit less for Naypes than it is for some of the others, clocking in at around 175 pages. When you compare it to a Tarbell, for those of you who don't have some of the latest Vanishing Ink releases, you can see that it is slightly smaller in all regards, but all in all, I think it has some really good stuff. There are 10 tricks in the book. Some of them are variations of others, but 10 individual effects described, as well as a number of different essays and an interview at the end between Helder Guimarães and Roberto himself. So now that we've talked about what is the book in terms of its dimensions, you are probably wondering what's in the book. Roberto Mansilla's style seems to be one that's very classic. A lot of these tricks that he teaches you out of the 10 effects are going to be classics of magic, such as Out of This World, Any Card at Any Number, Cards Across, things of that nature. There's a card to envelope from the magic of Paul LaPaul, several versions of the general card, and he has a whole discussion in there about the difference between the general card, the universal card, wild card, etc., going by different names and having slightly different presentations. Finally, he gives you his version of the tossed out deck. Anyway, everything he does is stand up and is not really designed for close-up. It's more adapting close-up effects and moving those to the parlor-sized audience. He tells you where he drew his inspiration from Robert Houdin, as well as Hofzinser and others who performed in these private parties in people's parlors, and that's how he designed his magic. So if that's a situation in which you could see yourself performing, this book might have some stuff for you. So what kind of items will you need to perform the items in the book? If you have a deck of cards, some wine glasses, perhaps some silks, and then some standard gaffs like double facers or double blanks, cards like that you're likely to have laying around, you'll be able to do almost everything in the book. As far as the skill level needed to perform what Roberto is teaching, I would suggest you'll need to be just past the beginner stage of magic. So you're going to need to be able to control a card, false shuffle to control the top stock or bottom stock. You'll need to be familiar with the top change, a dribble force, and a packet switch. Now he's going to give you an overview of those things, so if you aren't super familiar with them or it's been a while since you've done them, you'll get a refresher. But if you just want to take what he's written and try it quickly, it'll be easier if you already know some of these items. By the way, when I'm talking about these sleights, If you're interested in performing some of these, I believe that you should look at Sub Rosa by Ariel Freilich as possibilities for some of the sleights described within. You can check out my video review on that here. So what did I like about the book? Well, Roberto is very passionate about stand-up card magic. He's well-read, he's well-researched, he respects his history and talks a lot about why he chooses what he does, and he'll provide you with some inspiration to perform some beautiful card magic for parlor-sized audiences. Each piece that he teaches is beautiful and well constructed, and in general has a good pattern line if you're wanting to follow his setup. More on that in a minute. All of the illustrations and descriptions are perfectly adequate to teach you what you need to know to be performing these effects. In short, you're going to learn some neat handlings of some classic effects. So that's the good. On the things I didn't like quite as much, I didn't think there was anything truly groundbreaking in this book. That's not to say that there aren't good items. I think everything in here is highly performable and a great effect, a variation of a classic. If you like the premise of the effect, I think that it's likely for an intermediate magician, you already have a version that you perform. If you like Out of This World, you probably have a version that, with a little thought, could play to a parlor-sized audience. If you do an ACAAN, it's not likely that you're going to change for this one. Cards Across was, to me, already a stand-up style card trick, and while Roberto has a very interesting take on it that's probably different from what you've seen before, I don't know that it was super groundbreaking for me. There are only 10 effects in the book, and you're not going to be able to perform all of these in the same evening or performance because many of them are fairly derivative of another one in the book. Even the ones that are different, the props used are basically the same with cards and a wine glass. So if you're not careful, your audience could walk away not really remembering which item was which. And as I've seen sometimes in the Spanish style, there is quite a bit of process to some of the effects. For example, his tossed out deck involves handing participants packets of cards. They'll get to choose one mentally, and you'll do a little bit of discussion before you reveal each card. To me, this version of the tossed out deck didn't really add anything other than a little bit of process. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying this is a bad effect or you're not going to like any of these. In fact, I really liked the thinking he put into the effects. And frankly, I liked all of them. The problem is I already have versions of each that I would perform probably before I would switch to his approach. Now, that being said, if you don't already have stand-up card magic that you do, this would be a great introduction for someone who wants to take something that they already know from close-up magic and put it into a parlor setting. So if you've never done a stand-up performance in a living room for family or friends without the aid of a small table where people were gathered up around the table, then this book is definitely for you. The price is definitely right. They kept the costs down, I believe, by keeping it black and white, which is great because most of the illustrations are line drawings, so they don't need to be color. There's a segment in the book where he starts to talk about some paintings and drawing inspiration from them for different vantage points for magic. He talks about the color of the painting in there. Because this book was a reprint of a Spanish book, I can only assume the original book was in color. He references seeing a color in one of the paintings that obviously you can't see because it's black and white here. Now, what did I do? I just looked up the painting on Google so I could see exactly what he was talking about. But that's just one thing that they've done to try to keep the cost down for people to be able to afford to purchase the book. As always, with any Vanishing Ink book, it is beautiful. It is that hardbound with a nice ribbon to keep track of where you are. The footnotes are well done. There was one missing footnote I noticed that I think had something to do with the top change, but it didn't affect my reading or learning experience. So let's wrap up what I've just said. I think this book was designed for someone who does a lot of close-up card magic and wants to take another step in a different direction to perform some things for a parlor-sized audience. And if that's you, I think there's a lot that you'll like about this book. If you're already a parlor or stage performer who does some card tricks there, I think there's going to be less for you to gather. Most of his ideas you're probably already incorporating, but it might be worth it just to read how he makes the cards more visible and how he focuses the magic for the benefit of all the other non-participating spectators. I do like the fact that the book is $35, so it keeps it kind of affordable for anyone who's curious about it. It's not so much that you feel like you don't want to take the plunge, but you'll probably get your money's worth if you take only an idea or two from the book. If there's anything that I forgot to cover about this, or you want to know something else about this Vanishing Ink release, then please don't hesitate to drop a comment down below. And until next time, all my erudite friends, keep reading.